Juliet and I had been best friends ever since we had met, back in kindergarten. It was as if we simply couldn't be apart. Before I go into my story, please subscribe and watch this channel for upcoming exciting stories. Don't forget to comment and provide your feedback once you finish watching the story. I remember the first time we met. I was playing in the monkey bars and slipped, hitting my head hard. Well, really, it wasn't a big deal, but my 6-year-old mind surely freaked out. I was terrified, crying, and grabbing my head. Before the teacher could even get to where I was sitting, a red-haired girl with ponytails rushed to me, and she held my hand. "You are so cool. That trick was amazing," the little girl squealed, distracting me from my pain. "What?" I asked, wiping tears away. "You totally meant to do that, right?" she asked, making me smile weakly. Of course, I had not, and she knew it was a blunder, but it really was helping me feel better. "Oh, yes, I did," I replied, rubbing my head for an instant. When the teacher walked over to us, I was already fine. "Well, you are the coolest girl I've met," the little girl said, and I grinned even wider. "I'm Juliet." "I'm Emma," I replied, and she helped me up to my feet. And that was it. We were instantly best friends, and there was nothing in the world that could pull us apart. Or so I thought. You see, most people thought we were sisters, since we were literally around each other in every class, during lunch, and even after school. Either she walked with me to my home, or I walked with her to her house, and we'd spend a lot of time just hanging around, inventing fascinating games together, and, as we grew up, building a treehouse with the help of Juliet's dad. Actually, her parents and my mom and dad saw the other girl as their own daughter as well. It was inevitable since it was rare that one of us didn't sleep over at the other's home at least 4 times a week. It was like we were stuck by the hips, and we liked it that way. If any guy wanted to date us, they had to get the approval of the other. So, for instance, when Juliet got a crush on this annoying kid Justin and asked me what I thought, I immediately told her that I didn't like him. "You are way too good for him. Don't waste your time dating Justin," I said, and of course, Juliet followed my advice. It turned out to be a great decision because Justin began to date this other girl almost immediately, and guess what? He ended up cheating on that girl with 3 different girls. We couldn't believe it, and she thanked me so much for the great advice. "I told you so," I laughed, and we glared at Justin when he walked past us. Yeah, we were not going to be speaking to him anytime soon. I helped her with art projects, and she tutored me when it came to math. It seemed like we completely complemented each other. What she lacked, I had, and vice versa. Nothing could get in our way. Nothing but James. Oh, God, James. At first, I hated James. After all, he was Juliet's older brother, and he was so annoying towards us. He played pranks all the time and mocked us. James would often rush into Juliet's room and ask to play with us. We refused, and then he'd cry out, "Mom, Juliet and Emma won't let me play with them." "Girls, be nice and let James join in," her mom would cry back from downstairs. Since Juliet's mom was really nice, we didn't want to upset her, and so we'd reluctantly agree. Then James would proceed to mess with our game, ruining anything we were playing. If we were using cards, he folded them up. If we were playing a board game, he'd cheat and make excuses for why he was allowed to throw the dices again and again. And if for any reason we decided to let him use one of our toys, he'd pretend to hurt our Barbies and that they were stuck in a horror film. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to make believe we were shopping or taking care of imaginary babies or something like that. "Quit that, James. We don't like this game," we protested. But he just laughed. "I like it. You girls are boring," he'd mock us. "Then leave," I screamed at him, throwing a pillow over his head. Then, inevitably, a pillow fight began. I'm not saying that wasn't fun, but he still was constantly trying to annoy us. Once he actually got his friends to throw water balloons at us after we left Juliet's house. We were wearing super cute new dresses, and they completely ruined them. "You're awful, James!" We screamed at the same time, and we ran back into the house, looking for Juliet's mom. She was standing in the kitchen and gasped when she saw us soaked. "What happened, girls?" she asked, and we immediately began telling on James. Oh, he got in such terrible trouble. He was grounded for the rest of the weekend, and he didn't get to go to the park at all. We sure were happy that he had gotten in trouble after being so mean. But as we began to grow up, and he became less immature and, let's face it, less of a jerk, things began to change. Juliet wasn't too much into sports, but James and I sure were. I became the head cheerleader at our high school's team, and James managed to get the position of quarterback. That meant we had to spend more time together, and I actually had to cheer for the boy who used to be an annoying little brat. By the time he got to senior year, we got along well enough. Not amazingly, but we were on friendly terms, and Juliet got along with her brother well enough that they could actually hang out without barking at each other. That was a great relief to their parents, and quite honestly, also to me. Because, well, you see, I was beginning to like James. At first, I didn't think that it was something serious. I just got along with him and had a few laughs. Then we began texting back and forth and having our own little inside jokes that not even Juliet knew about. I felt awful about it, since I didn't know if it was fine to hang out so often with my best friend's brother. We had been enemies in a silly way growing up, and he had been so annoying to us when we were children. Now, everything seemed to have changed, and I didn't really know how to deal with it, or how to tell Juliet about it. Was there anything to say, though? I didn't have romantic feelings or anything like that for James, but I still felt oddly guilty about it. Well, I suddenly realized why I felt so confused one night while I was waiting for Juliet to return home from her date. I had a big fight with my dad that evening and didn't want to go back to my house, so I decided to simply sit in the treehouse. Juliet would be back any minute, and then she'd be able to tell me all the details of her date with this new guy she met. I was fiddling with my cell phone when I heard someone climbing up the tree. I looked up, thinking Juliet might have arrived already, even if it was a bit early. Much to my surprise, James crawled into the treehouse, giving me a sexy little grin. Why did I think it was sexy? This was just James, Juliet's brother James. He wasn't sexy, he was just James. A little bit old to be playing up here, don't you think? He teased me, and we both laughed as I rolled my eyes. Hey, James, I was actually waiting for your sister. Well, she won't be home for a while. Would you like to come wait inside? It's comfier there. I don't think a treehouse is the right place for a superstar cheerleader. I giggled again and slapped his arm playfully. And much to my surprise, it was so muscular and firm. I looked up at him, blushing lightly as we stared into each other's eyes. James was so handsome. I couldn't believe that I hadn't noticed before that night. He had the most beautiful eyes and the most amazing smile. And oh, God, he was so athletic and strong-looking. I wanted nothing but to lean in and kiss him, but I knew it was wrong. I couldn't be in love with my best friend's brother. It was wrong, and Juliet would never, ever forgive me. So I decided it was a good idea to go back into the house and avoid being in such close quarters to him. Yeah, you're right, let's climb down the tree, I agreed, and he made his way down first, teasingly telling me, I'm going first so I can see up your skirt. Perv, I protested, laughing out loud, but I didn't really mind. In fact, I kind of liked him being cheeky. I began stepping down the ladder, and just when I was about to reach the ground, I slipped and fell. Oh, I yelped, thinking I was going to hurt myself, but suddenly James got me in his arms, holding me close and saving me from falling. There we were, so close to each other's face. He was carrying me bridal style, and I couldn't help but blush furiously. He stared into my eyes intensely, and before I could even react, James leaned forward and kissed me, right on the lips. It was the most magical moment of my entire life. I knew I had to move away, to reject him, but I simply couldn't do it. I was in love with James. That was the second I realized there was no going back. I knew I could no longer hide my feelings and pretend he was just another guy I hung out with. I wanted to be his girlfriend. I wanted to kiss him over and over again. I wanted him to be my first real boyfriend. Just when the kiss began to really heat up, and it was turning into more of a makeout session than anything else, we heard a yelp coming from a few feet away. James, Emma, what are you doing? It was Juliet's voice. She had come back early from her date and caught us red-handed. James almost dropped me to the ground in surprise, but managed to help me back to my feet with his quick reflexes. Juliet, it's not what it seems, I squealed, but the minute I said it, I knew it was bullshit. It was exactly what it seemed. You can't make out with my brother. You are my best friend, she protested and ran away into the house. I tried knocking on her door for hours, but she wouldn't let me in. I ended up sleeping on the couch, feeling awful about what I had done. The next morning, I woke up with Juliet patting me on the head, perhaps a bit harder than she needed to. Wake up, loser, she told me, and I sat down, giving her a super guilty look. I'm so sorry, Juliet. I began to speak, but she shushed me. It's okay. I talked with James this morning, and apparently, you two weren't just fooling around. He really, really likes you. I nodded in relief. I really, really like him too. I think I might even be in love with him, I replied, and Juliet sighed. Fine. I guess I can accept that because I want you both to be happy. But no more secrets, okay? She asked, and I immediately nodded. I swear. James and I began dating that day, and we've been together ever since. And you know what? Juliet was my bridesmaid at our wedding. I couldn't have asked for a better friend.